Welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I am Adam. Wednesday. It's like 70 degrees out. You know what it reminded me of? I stepped out of my house today and I was thinking about it, and it reminds me a little bit of those days in high school. I don't know if it's a universal thing or just a New York thing, but when you're in high school, the last 2 or 3 weeks of this semester, you would end up with, you'd only go in on days you had a test for final exams. You would, stay home most days, and then if you had a test to go in for, you would go in, take the test, and go home. And every one of these days, I never wanted to go in, and you would go out, and because it was a truncated day with less people going in than usual, rather than doing the full bus routes, they had these special bus routes. So, you would go out and you would have to walk to a totally different bus stop just to catch the bus that day. And if you're like me and you got anxiety about it, you're like, oh, fuck, am I at the right spot? No one else is here? Oh, crap, who else do I know is taking this test is going to be here? And I just that kind of thing, thinking about it. And looking at kind of the temperature today, that's how I felt when I stepped out with my bag and everything, on my way to work. It's like, I don't want to go to work today. But I am. So I went to bed early last night, and there is a new episode of Irma Vep, this new show on HBO Max. But I went to bed early last night because today is the start of 3 weeks of Kenobi and Ms. Marvel both coming out on the same day, which is a decision that I disagree with as someone who does reviews, because now I got to sit here and watch 2 hours of TV and then decide tomorrow morning which one I'm going to do in the first and then which one I'm going to do in the afternoon. And invariably the one in the afternoon is going to be not as good because it'll be almost full 24 hours since I watched it by the time I record it. So it's just one of those situations where it's I wish that they had kept Kenobi on Friday, and kept Ms. Marvel on Wednesday. It would have made it easier for me. And really moving the premiere to Friday and then not doing anything else on Friday feels like they just wanted to have it so that way they could have the premiere at Star Wars Celebration and not worry about, they couldn't do it the week after Star Wars Celebration because then everything would leak out. They can't do it the week before Star Wars Celebration because if they do that, then everyone will, what's there to show at Star Wars Celebration in terms of a premiere? Because everyone will have already seen it at that point. If they're going to Star Wars Celebration, they are absolutely watching Kenobi on day one. So, yeah. And there's one guy at work, adamantly hates Ms. Marvel. There hasn't been a single, the episode came out today. I can promise you he hasn't watched it today yet. Because, like most people, they're not waking up early to watch it and then go to work after. They're just going to, watch it after work, or on their lunch break or something. If their job gives them an hour for lunch. But I don't think that, he's been adamant for, the last, week or so, or even longer than that, since they had the first trailer. This is gonna be shitty, it doesn't look good. And I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Why is it not going to be good? What is it about this that's going to make it not good? So that's not what we're here to talk about today. We'll be talking about that tomorrow and beware of spoilers. I'll probably do, depending on which one I like better, or which one there is more to talk about, I'll do the one with more to talk about in the morning and the one with less to talk about in the afternoon. Or, afternoon, evening, really. As for today's topic at hand, which you've probably gleaned from the headline, Spider-Man No Way Home, and how the ending makes no sense. And I'm not talking about the multiverse fight. I'm not talking about the three Peters. I'm not talking about the spell that, makes people forget that Peter Parker even exists. Well, partially that. I'm talking about the fact that this kid gets an apartment on his own in Manhattan with his situation. Especially considering the housing market of the Marvel Cinematic Universe at the time that this happens. And it's not even one of those things where it's like, oh, maybe Sony just didn't want to acknowledge what's going on, the finer points of Marvel. No, it's different. So, looking at, this and how it works. Stephen Strange, at the end of the movie, does the spell that makes all of humanity forget Peter Parker ever existed. So, it doesn't matter who they are, how close they were to Peter, or anything like that, no one remembers that Peter Parker existed. So he's still there, but to everyone's memory, he is nothing. Plus, Aunt May is dead, which makes that decision a little bit easier. But, like MJ, Ned, who was the other one? Happy. No one on Earth remembers that he is Peter Parker. Now, the interesting thing about that is, as a result, he no longer exists. He functionally doesn't exist anymore, this kid. He just, he's there, but he doesn't have an identity. He doesn't have... So, I'm assuming a few things happened between his, that spell and him getting the apartment, which is really what I have the issue with, is him getting the apartment in Manhattan. Is that, number one, he had to have gone and, forged a birth certificate somehow, and gotten a social security number somehow. I don't know how he would have done that, but he would have had to have done that. That would have been, step one, is he would have had to have get some kind of credential to be able to show that he is, in fact, a person. Then, number two, considering he doesn't have money because he doesn't, as a high school student, it's not shown that, he has a job like MJ does. We see MJ with the job, but we don't see him with a job. So I think it's his job, quote unquote, is Spider-Man. That is his job when he's not, in school, or even when he is in school. His job is Spider-Man. So, okay, but that doesn't pay the bills, and that's historically been a problem with Spider-Man, is that, look, it's great, he's going out and doing all the superheroics, and Peter Parker's still broke as fuck, and he doesn't have any money, or anything like that. So, looking at that, how the fuck does he afford this apartment? Because here's the problem I have. He is about, at most, 5 blocks from Rockefeller Plaza. So he's in Midtown, in Manhattan, when he has this apartment. And in his hand, when he's moving in, is a GED prep book, which means he still has not gotten his high school diploma. So, you mean to tell me that this probably still 17-year-old kid, because he is not out of high school yet, because that's the thing, he's starting his senior year in the movie, and at the end of the movie, it is now Christmas. Or just before Christmas, because Christmas, the tree gets destroyed by Kate Bishop and Hawkeye. Or the Hawkeyes, I guess we'll call them. So, you mean to tell me that, in that time, he hasn't finished high school yet. Alright, fine, understood. But he still hasn't managed to... what's it called? He still hasn't managed to get an apartment. He gets an apartment in that time. But with what money? With what money? And he's 17 years old. he's an emancipated... Well, first of all, he legally can't be an emancipated minor because he doesn't exist, so he can't go through the court process to become emancipated. Also, his guardian is dead, so it's not like he can emancipate from her because she's dead. Also, he doesn't exist. So he is still, at 17, bound to the rules of, like, needing to do, what's it called? Needing to do, needing the labor laws that pertain to minors. So you have this kid who doesn't have a, what fucking landlord is going to rent it? And don't even get me started on how much rent is in Midtown Manhattan. Because, right now in the real world, the cheapest apartment I could find in Midtown Manhattan was $2,000 a month. And it's not a room, and the thing is, it's not like he's doing a room share with a bunch of roommates. He has an apartment by himself, alone, his own studio, with a little kitchen and all of that. That apartment is not cheap. If he was doing a room share, maybe I could buy it a little bit more because then he's defraying the cost among roommates. But that's not what's happening here. He has his own apartment. Now, okay, great. He has his own apartment. He is spending, that somehow happened. I don't understand, where is he getting a job off the books, keep in mind, because that's an important part of this, is that whatever job he gets cannot be on the books because he doesn't have a social security number to be able to pay income taxes because he doesn't exist. So whatever job he has to be off the books. Or at least willing to hire someone, so he's not working for any major chains. And New York does have a ton of mom and pop shops, but the thing is, how is he able to do that with one job to afford this apartment? He'd have to be making close to $30 an hour to be able to afford that. So if he has 2 minimum wage jobs working full time, that's possible, but legally at 17 he can't work full time. So it is this weird conundrum about what's going on. Now, what I would do for the sequel is I would do, he gets the job where MJ works, but what, did he go to, social services or something, or the housing, New York City's housing subdivision of their government, and it's hey, I need to live somewhere, and they got him that, and it's okay, cool, we don't, one less homeless youth, but who the fuck is that? There needs to be a record of it. There needs to be some kind of record of it. And also, what money he does have, to take the GED class, to get the GED book, where's he getting that money from? That's the thing that I have more of a problem with in this than, anything else. Plus, he also has enough money to get enough materials to build a new Spider-Man suit. It's one of those things where it's it bothers me more than it should, it feels like. Because, I was watching the movie, every time I watched the movie, I watched it twice in theaters, and then I watched it on home media, since it came out. And every time I watched the movie, all 3 times, I was well, what the fuck? How the fuck can this kid afford this apartment? That's where the movie loses me. And I realize it's the last bit of the movie and the very ending of the movie, but how the fuck does that happen? And then get me started on Morbius' fucking dumbass post-credit scenes that make absolutely no sense, by any stretch of the imagination. And they don't even attempt to rectify it with reality or the internal logic of that world. Because, you would think it has to be a simple, infallible solution, where it's okay, these people are here, these people shouldn't be here. So because they shouldn't be here and they now are here, we're going to put them back where they should be. And so everyone gets sent back. Now, is it possible, because Michael Keaton got sent to the wrong universe and he didn't even do anything or was involved in any way in the proceedings of this movie, is it possible that, one of the other Peters got sent back to the wrong universe? Is that possible? Could that happen? could Electro have ended up in Tobey Maguire's universe or anything like that? Or, like, if we're gonna send someone to the wrong universe, why does it have to be Michael Keaton? Why does it have to be, you know, Vulture? Why can't it be Electro? Why can't it be... Well, because they're cured now, I guess, would be the big thing. But, like, everyone goes back to their own universes, except for Michael Keaton, who gets sent to the wrong one anyway. Like, even Venom, who only gets sent because of a multiversal hive mind, and he gets sent to the wrong universe, and then gets sent back. And it's one of those things where it's like, it's just silly. It's just so silly. But looking at the movie now, it's like, I still think the biggest problem with the movie, for me, hands down, is, you know, well, how the fuck does that happen? Like, how does he get this apartment? And I think it's a valid concern if you're going to sit here and do that. And I think that to an extent it does show how out of touch, like, Hollywood is. Because, like, $2,000 a month on housing is a lot of money. Like, assuming that, like, all utilities are included, which is probably not the case. I would assume water and gas are included in that apartment, but probably not electricity. And then if he needs to have, like, Wi-Fi or a phone or, like, anything like that, that's also on top of that. He lives in New York City, so he doesn't really need a car to cut down on his expenses. But, like, the Metro card isn't exactly the cheapest thing on the planet. It's like $100 or $150 a month for the 30-day pass. Maybe $180. Someone in New York could correct me on that, but, like, it's cheaper than having a car, to be sure, by a country mile, because you don't have to pay either a lease fee or a loan fee. You don't have to pay for car insurance. You don't have to, there's a lot of things there that you don't have to pay for by using the Metro card. But looking at, like, you know, him, like, if that's the case, that's more money that he needs to spend elsewhere on top of that. Plus, he needs to eat. He needs to do laundry. Like, you know, it's not like he has a support system where he can be like, okay, so I have friends and family that will help me out, who I can go to their house and eat, or I can go and do this, or anything like that. And he doesn't have that. Which, I mean, admittedly will cut down on his recreation budget, because he's not going and hanging out with people. But he doesn't have that support system to keep him in, like, check, I guess, to help him out in that scenario. Like, he doesn't have someone's house he can go to and do laundry. He has to go to a laundromat, which is going to cost money, and he's going to have to buy detergent, he's going to have to buy, like, all of this stuff. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, it doesn't quite add up. But the movie isn't concerned with showing you how it could line up. Like, I'm not saying you gotta sit here and have him be have him do that. But, like, you could have just had it end with him squatting in the apartment for Aunt May. And then worked out this part of it in the next movie. Like, you could have just had him living in the apartment with Aunt May, because now he can go back there. There's no reason why he can't go back there. Because now no one knows he's Spider-Man anymore, so there's, like, people harassing him at the door and trying to get into his window and looking in on him and all of that kind of stuff. So, very much, there is an option to do that. But yeah, I don't know what it was that made me think about this morning when I was getting dressed, and I was like, that really fucking annoys me, to let me do a 20-minute bit on it. So we'll wrap up there for today. And until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.